Hey friends, happy Sunday and welcome back to another week of What's for Dinner. If you're new here, hello and welcome. I am Taylor. I'm a stay-at-home wife and mom, and I share What's for Dinner videos just like this every Sunday to hopefully give you some new meal ideas and motivate you to cook more for your family. We tried a couple new recipes this week. Everything turned out delicious and I'm excited to share everything with you. As always, any recipes that I mention will be linked in the description box. Now let's go ahead and get into this week's What's for Dinner. Starting off Friday night, we just had some barbecue pulled pork sandwiches. I am using this boneless pork shoulder roast that's already seasoned from Aldi. And then I'm going in with a little bit of their Kansas City style barbecue sauce as well. Just putting all of that in the Crock-Pot and letting it cook on low for about 8 hours. And then at the end, all I have to do is shred it up and put it on some buns. I like to do their brioche buns, add a touch more barbecue sauce, or the kids and Andy I think like cheese on theirs. Then we did some Kraft macaroni and cheese on the side and some fresh veggies on the side as well. Saturday night we did tuna melts, which isn't exactly new, but our kids had not had them before. Me and Andy used to eat them all the time, and then the kids would just eat something else. But I decided to get the kids to try them. So I'm just taking 2 cans of tuna here. This was enough to just feed me and the kids. And then when Andy came home later, I made another can for him. I did 2 cans, a little bit of mayonnaise, a little bit of Dijon mustard, a little bit of garlic powder, onion salt, salt and pepper, and just mix that up. I like to just add a little bit of mayonnaise at a time until I get it to be the consistency that I want. So I went in and added a little bit more mayonnaise and a little bit more mustard, and then I thought it was looking good. So then I'm going to put it on some sourdough bread. You can use whatever bread you want, but I like how firm the sourdough is so your bread doesn't get soggy. If you're using just regular sandwich bread, I like to toast it a little bit first. But I just put my tuna on there, and then the kids are going to be actual sandwiches. I'm going to do an open face sandwich. So on theirs, I'm only putting tuna on one side and then their cheese on the other side, and they're just using cheddar cheese. But the reason I wanted to have tuna melts was because I saw somebody on TikTok use this dill Havarti on their tuna melt. So that's what I did on mine. I was trying that for the first time, and then I just stuck this in my air fryer or toaster oven and let it toast, I don't know, 5 minutes until the tuna was warmed and your cheese was melted. To go with this, we just had some chips. I kept it super simple. The kids were a little bit afraid to try the tuna melts, but they ended up loving them and have been asking for them every day since. And I liked it with the Havarti, the dill Havarti, but I think cheddar is definitely my favorite with tuna. Sunday was Father's Day, and one of Andy's favorite foods is spaghetti, so I wanted to make spaghetti, but I also wanted to try this TikTok spaghetti that I've been seeing going around. So I tried it with a couple different things, but I'm starting off by browning up 1 pound of ground meat. I chose some Italian sausage, but you could just use regular ground beef if you wanted to. And I'm going to season that up with onion salt, garlic powder, salt, pepper, Italian seasoning, and red pepper. You could also add in some diced onion and minced garlic if you wanted to, but I was not feeling like cutting up either of those things this night. So I'm just going to brown that up until the sausage is fully cooked. And then I'm going to use the paper towel trick and drain off any of the excess grease. Then I added in 1 jar of spaghetti sauce, and then half of that jar filled up with water. And then I have this Campbell's flavor up stuff that I found at Dollar Tree. So I added in some of the garlic and herb flavor of that, and then also some beef bouillon powder to turn that water into beef broth, because you could just fill the jar with beef broth if you want to use that. And then I added in 16 ounces of pasta. You'd probably want to use spaghetti in this, but I realized that I was out of spaghetti, so I used this bucatini that I got at Trader Joe's. It's pretty much like spaghetti, but it's hollow on the inside like a straw, and it turned out good. And then you also want to add in 1 jar of Alfredo sauce, and I did break the pasta in half just so it would be easier to mix. And then you want to cook this over medium heat for 20 minutes, stirring halfway through. At the end of the 20 minutes, Mine wasn't quite done, and I think that's just because I used the bucatini and it's a little bit thicker than regular spaghetti. And I also felt like it needed a little bit more water because of that. So I added half a cup more water and cooked this for another 5 minutes. So in total, this took me 25 minutes of cooking the noodles. And then you can just add in some shredded cheese. I did some shredded Italian style cheese, and then this is ready to eat. We just served this with some garlic bread on the side. You could do salad or whatever. It was delicious. It was just like a different take on spaghetti, basically. It was cheesy, and I always love when you mix like the Alfredo and the marinara sauce. I do another dish that you like bake in the oven called two-time impasta, and we love that. So we really like this, and we had a cake for dessert. We made Andy a funfetti cake for Father's Day. Monday night, I made what I'm going to call ranch chicken thighs and veggies in the crock pot. I just kind of threw some stuff together. So I had these colorful carrots from Trader Joe's that I sliced up, and then some of the little baby potatoes that I cut up into quarters, and then I had half of an onion and some minced garlic. I added in some salt and pepper, onion salt, garlic powder, paprika, and half of a package of ranch seasoning. And then I also did some chicken bouillon because I'm going to add in some water. I did a cup of water in here as well. I tossed the vegetables in that mix, added in my water, and then I put on 1.5 pounds of chicken thighs. It was like 6 chicken thighs. And then I did the same seasoning mix on top of those and the other half of the packet of ranch seasoning. And then I put on 1 stick of butter that I sliced up, and then put a lid on this and let it cook on low for about 8 hours. This turned out delicious. I was just kind of throwing stuff together that I had on hand. I knew I wanted to use those carrots from Trader Joe's, so I just threw some stuff in there. It was very like similar to Mississippi chicken thighs, just you're missing like the beef broth and the pepperoncinis, but it was really good. When we came home from martial arts, I just made up some white rice, and we had this on top of some white rice. And I would definitely do it again. It was just easy to throw together that morning and have dinner ready for us that evening. Tuesday night, we had some really easy Instant Pot chicken burrito bowls. There is a recipe for this on Pinterest, but I wasn't really following the recipe. I was just kind of using what I had on hand. But I started off by heating up some olive oil in my Instant Pot on the saute function, and then I added in 1 pound of cubed up chicken breasts along with some garlic powder, onion powder, and then about a tablespoon of chili powder, a teaspoon and a half of ground cumin, and then some chicken bouillon and salt and pepper. And I just let that cook for just a couple of minutes to let my chicken just kind of start cooking. It doesn't have to be cooked all the way through because we are going to end up cooking this under pressure. So after about 3 minutes, then I'm going to add in 1 can of black beans that I drained, 1 can of Rotel, and then I did like the bottom of a jar of some corn salsa from Trader Joe's, but you could just also add in some frozen corn. And then I put on 1 cup of white rice on top of this, and then total I added in 1 cup of water, and I just poured that over the rice and kind of pressed it in and made sure it was like covered in water, but you don't want to stir it around. Then you put a lid on this and cook this on manual high pressure for 10 minutes, and then after the 10 minutes you can just do a quick release, stir it around, and it's ready to serve. We always serve this with some cheese on top. You could do more salsa. We did some chips on top of it as well, and then some guacamole on the side. Wednesday night, I made some fried sausage and potatoes. So I started off with my skillet and I added in some olive oil. And then once that was hot, I'm going to add in some onions and diced potatoes and then season that up with whatever you like. I did some garlic powder, onion salt, pepper, paprika, and I think that was it. And then I put a lid on this and let this cook over a medium heat for, it probably took about 10 minutes until the potatoes and onions like started to soften. And then once they started to soften, that is when I'm going to remove the lid and let this cook with the sausage and some minced garlic, and like really let it fry up and let those potatoes get crispy. But if you start trying to fry the potatoes first in the oil and get them crispy, then sometimes you have a hard time at getting them soft in the center. So I like to kind of like steam them, and then once they're like soft and you can put a fork in them, and then you turn up the heat a little bit. I do this over like a medium high heat, and just kind of crisp up those potatoes and crisp up that sausage. And you just want to cook it until it gets nice and crispy how you like it. This is one of those meals that reminds me of my childhood. It's something my mom made a lot, but I remember as a kid I would always pick out the onions. So we served it with some ketchup and some hot sauce and some green beans on the side. Okay, and the last meal of the week for Thursday, we had lasagna. This was actually a big dinner. We had some family over to celebrate my birthday, which is coming up on Tuesday. But my sister surprised me by coming into town, so we did this a little bit early. And I made a ton of lasagna. So I'm starting off by browning up 2 pounds of ground beef, because as I said, it's a ton. And once it started to like brown up, then I'm going to add in my seasonings and some onion and minced garlic. For seasonings, I like to do Italian seasoning, garlic powder, onion salt, Italian seasoning, and some red pepper flakes and a little bit of salt and pepper. And then I did a ton of minced garlic and a ton of onion because this is a huge recipe. I made a giant lasagna size pan, and then I also did like a 9 by 13 inch pan. So it's a bunch. We still have some in the fridge. My brother took half of a pan home. I have no like in between for cooking, is what I was telling Andy. I either make a ton of food or I make like enough for our family with like one day of leftovers. There is no in between. So once the meat was all brown and my onion was nice and soft, then I added in 2 jars of marinara sauce, and I made sure to rinse both of those jars with a little bit of water, and then I just stirred that to combine. I don't need to heat this up right now because it's going to be going in the oven and baking. Next, if you've been here for a while, you know I like to use cottage cheese in my lasagna instead of ricotta cheese. I saw it in a recipe one time and I've just been doing that ever since. So I did a whole 24-ounce container of cottage cheese that was not blended, and then I had one in the fridge that was mostly full that had been blended. I had used it for some other things, but it was pretty much all the way full. So I used that in here as well, and then I did 3 eggs, and then a bunch of pepper and a little bit of salt and some garlic powder, and then an entire like 8-ounce thing of Parmesan cheese that I had shredded up. Added that in here as well, and I just mixed it together really well. This is going to be our like cottage cheese filling for the lasagna, and then I set that to the side until I was ready to assemble it. Okay, here is my giant lasagna pan. I coated it with some cooking spray, and then I have another jar of marinara sauce. I put some of that down, and then a layer of noodles, and then some of the meat sauce, and then I did some of the cottage cheese, and then some shredded mozzarella, and then repeat. Noodles, meat sauce, cottage cheese, mozzarella, and then another layer of noodles, and then I just did marinara sauce, not the meat sauce, and mozzarella on top. And then I just repeated this same process with the other lasagna that I made. And then I covered this with foil. I like to stick toothpicks in the top of my lasagna so that the foil doesn't stick to the cheese. It just helps give it a little bit of room so it doesn't fall down and stick to it. And I cover it with foil and baked it for 45 minutes on 375, and then another 15 minutes on 375. To go with it, I made some garlic bread or dinner, I had some sliced Italian bread and I put some Chef Shammy's garlic butter on there and toasted that in the oven. And then we had all of the stuff for salads. I didn't get a picture of anyone's plate. There was family here. We were celebrating my birthday, as I said. I also didn't even get a picture of the cake. We had gotten a cake from Publix and it was delicious. And the lasagna was delicious and dinner was great. It was great spending time with family and my sister while she was here. But that is going to be it for this week's What's for Dinner. I hope that y'all enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave me a thumbs up and make sure you leave me a smiley face emoji down there in the comments to let me know that you made it here all the way to the end. And let me know if you plan on trying any of the recipes that I mentioned today down there in the comments as well. I hope y'all have a great week and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye!